Hi everyone, welcome back to another SimplePlanes video. In this video, I'll show you how to fly the SWL-120. So, let's get started. And just before we get started, if you'd like to know how to just turn everything on and get flying, then skip to the timestamp on screen now. And if you'd like a tour of all the interactivity in the interior, then skip to the timestamp on screen. And now back to the video. And to start off with, let's check what mods we have installed. You'll need the SWL-120 pilots mod to use the aircraft. And I also recommend having some other map mods. You don't need any of these, but it's just adds some more terrain to fly around with in the game. I personally use the items, but at the minimum you'll need the SWL-120 pilots mod. Once you're in the editor, there are a few things we have to do before we can go flying, or at least some things you have to do the first time you download the aircraft. We want to go into both navigation screens. We want to set what mods we have enabled. Now this is already set to what I have, but if you use any of these mods or don't use any of these mods, then you want to set these. The platform, I guess it's always just computer. I have a mobile option for some reason, but you only have mods on computer, so it'll just stay on computer. But then I have the items installed, so I'll set that to enabled. You also have to do this for the other screen. And the final thing is to set in the variables. And yes, it is a bit laggy. You want to set the day length. Now I play with my day length set to 3 hours or 180 minutes, which is already set here. But if you have it on some other time, then you might want to adjust that. That's just used for the clock, nothing else. And now with that set, we are ready to start flying. Now this video, it will not tell you exactly what every single control does. For that, I recommend you read the instructional manual, which is accessible either on the snakepad here, or as its own separate document available for download from the aircraft description. We also have other copies of the checklists and airport and data. So I'm only just going to follow the checklist. I'm going to go to Startup. Now, one thing this aircraft has is what I call a walker, which pretty much just allows me to move around wherever I want. What I'm doing right now is I'm just using my pitch, roll, and yaw, or my WASD keys, or E and Q, to move around kind of like you're walking, although it's more like flying. I guess it's like spectator mode in Minecraft. I also set fire guns or the spacebar to go faster. It just allows you to fully explore everything. Anyway, so back to the cockpit. The first item is a walk around. Now you don't actually have to do this, it's just a checklist item for realism, but let's just go ahead and do this. I don't have a list of what you need to look at, but I guess we just have a look around at different parts of the aircraft. And with that complete, or it's more like a quick lap of the aircraft, not really a full walk around, but anyway, with that complete, that's done. Now the flight plan, this is also kind of a realism item, but this really just means to have an idea of where you're flying and to have the data all for destination and origin airports in one place. All this data is accessible in the airport data document. So today I'm going to fly from Wright Airport to, let's just say I'm going to fly over Yeager or Krakatoa, and then I'm going to fly down to Jaguars. I do not know how to pronounce that, but it's one of the mod islands from the items. I'm going to Skuma Airport in Jaguars. But we have this document, so I'll come back to that. So we haven't really completed flight plan, but we have an idea of what we're going to do. So now I can start to actually control stuff. So we're going to turn both batteries on. and then the electrics master on. So now I have some screens on and some other stuff. Next up, we just check the avionics disconnect is off. And that's this button here. Actually, I should probably be in the cockpit view for this. And also, I should probably show you this before, but I also have a cockpit panels camera. This allows you to just view some of the panels in the cockpit without having to awkwardly look around from the cockpit view. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just pressing Activate 2. So each press, or really on or off, just cycles it through one of 4 views. So we have the overhead panel, the autopilot, or by extension the main screens, the flight management computers, and then the aft center panel. I mainly use this to interact with the flight management computers, since if we go back to cockpit view, it's a little bit annoying since there's a yoke in the way, and while I can just push it down here, when you're flying, this would just pitch the whole plane down. Back to the avionics master, this just turns off all of the avionics, not the switch covers. Let's turn that off, to check off. Flight displays, check on. Yep, they're on. They'll always be on. I just added this like a realism thing, since in real life sometimes stuff doesn't work as expected. And then cockpit lights as needed. I say as needed, but I always just use overhead and then these 5. The 2 dome lights are these lights here, which don't really light up much. But they're there since it's there in real life. Then we have the clock. Now we need to set this to the current in-game time since it starts at 00. Have a look at the current in-game time. We can see it is 7 o'clock, but it's actually more like 6:40 because it rounds up to the nearest hour. We're going to set this to 6:42. And since the game always starts at, it's not started at, but whatever time the game starts at is on the hour, so it's not like 6:30, it's always, well, it would have been 6 o'clock. This current time is now accurate to in-game. That's set. Aircraft controls. This is not something that's there in real life, it's just something that's part of the, I guess, simulator aspect. Kind of like this snake pad, sort of. So, there are 2 controls here, one's for the tiller. This is explained in the technical manual. I'm going to set it to mode 2 since I'm not in virtual reality, I don't have rudder pedals. And for the throttle, I'm going to set this to split since we're on computer. I'm going to use the actual throttle input, not just dragging the throttles. And next up, parking brake set. Currently it's off. We're just going to pull this to on. Now ground power on. Ground power on. Next up we have ground hydraulics and hydraulics master. So ground hydraulics and hydraulics master. Then navigation lights and strobe lights. Navigation and strobe. And cabin lights, first in economy. This says as needed. I'm just going to turn them on. By as needed, I just mean do what you want to do, I guess. For example, I'm not entirely sure how realistic this is, but if, say, you're in real life and you're like doing a ferry flight, so there's no passengers on board, you may turn them off. I don't know. But cabin lights are now on. Next up, no smoking lights. And then cargo lights, wing inspection, and logo lights are all as needed. So for no smoking signs, we're going to turn them on. And then wing inspection, I'm going to leave these off. I'm going to turn the logo light on. And what else was there? Cargo lights. I'm going to leave them off for now. APU if needed. Well, if you're going to start the engines, you'll always need this. I guess I'll just put this as if needed for realism. But anyway, center tank pumps on. APU selector dial to start. We can just go ahead to the cockpit panels view. We can just view the overhead panel. The APU is now started. I'll go back to the captain's seat. So now we're just going to turn all of the pneumatics and then AP generators and pumps on. So electrics, hydraulics, and then APU bleed air, aircraft pressure, and then pretty much all of this. Now none of this is really used for anything, it's just there for realism, so all it does is just display on and then draw some pressure from the duct. So that's on. Now I can do a pre-flight, so IRS or inertial reference system. On. All this is just a fancy way of disabling the use of latitude and longitude. So I turn all this off, you can see on the waypoint display, the aircraft thinks it's at -9999 for latitude and longitude. If I turn this on, or at least one of them on, it'll display the actual coordinates. So turn all of that on. Navigation display, yep, it's working. We can see current terrain, we can also zoom in and out. And then CVR and CDR, so cockpit voice recorder and cockpit data recorder. Now, this does absolutely nothing, but we're just going to do this for realism. Test, start, test, start. Next up, cabin power. This is just, now let's probably switch to overhead view. This is just all of this. These do absolutely nothing except draw power from the electrical system. These four do actually do something to display some lights and signs. So cabin power is on. Windshield wipers, now I don't really have a reason to use these at any time since there's no weather in SimplePlanes, but these do work with different settings, but we'll just leave them off. And fasten seatbelt signs, we can turn them to on. And this is where it gets a bit complicated. We have the flight management computers and the radio management computers, and the transponder. So now we're going to enter in all the flight details. Now, this is where I'd kind of recommend you have another document up, or maybe another monitor, or just have the flight details written down somewhere so you can answer them. I should have done that, but I don't, so I'm just going to do this. Just put the yoke down. So we're flying from right to Jaguars. So we're going to enter in the route page the ICAO code for the origin. Actually, I should have mentioned this earlier, but when you get the aircraft to the state where the flight manager computers are functional, there's one last bit of setup you have to do. You have to go into setup, and then you have to enable the mods you use in here. This is so the flight management system knows what mods you use. So you have to set the platform to computer, and then I'm going to turn this to enabled. Otherwise, stuff like the ICAO code for Jaguars would not work. Sorry, not Jaguars, but Jaguars is the island. Anyway, so the ICAO code is KSCO, so I'm going to type that in, KSCO. Flight number, I'm just going to make something up. Snake Air 123, no creative. And then I'm going to do this as a pretty realistic flight, so I'm going to enter in all this information. Now climb vertical speed, something realistic. This information does get entered into the autopilot, but you can just set it later, but it doesn't really matter that much. Cruise speed, flight level, I'll do flight level 150. Cruise speed, 250. This does absolutely nothing, so I'll just leave it. Approach, I'm going to try it some VNAV, so one moment.
A few minutes later.
Might as well just show you this just for now. This is the waypoint map that I have created for all the waypoints supported by the aircraft. I'll just hide the ones that I'm not currently using. So for waypoints, this is where the aircraft currently is, and we're going to fly from Wright Airport over Krakatoa, and then we're going to come down over here to where Jaguars is. I'm going to fly in, I'll do the east approach. So the waypoints we're going to use are going to be Vicon, since we're going to fly north. I'll do Cracon, then I'll actually go over here to Solnap, and then I'm going to go Conmap, Scoep. So Vicon, Cracon, Solnap, Conmap, and Scoep. Then back to the VNav I was talking about. I'm going to set the target waypoint to the last waypoint in the flight plan. That'll be Scoep. And while I just talked about the flight plan, I'll just add that now. So the first waypoint is Vicon. Next waypoint is Cracon. Then it was, oh, I forgot already. Cracon, Solnap, Conmap, okay. So, Solnap, Conmap, and then it was Scoep. And that'll be a flight plan. So back to the approach, we have a target waypoint for VNav. Approach vertical speed doesn't matter now since we're doing VNav, but you have to enter it anyway, because that makes sense. And then approach speed, I'll just put in 200 or something. Target altitude, I'll do like 2500. That is our route setup. Now for takeoff, this does absolutely nothing, but we'll do it for real-time purposes, because why not? Runway is right airport, just runway 36. Runway heading is 360. Runway condition is dry, runway length. Again, this is useless information, but I got it for you, so it's all on this table. Right airport, runway 1836, 7240. And for landing, we're going to Skumu Airport. That will be down here, 1028, 8291 for runway length, 8291. Runway heading, it's probably not ILS data. Skumu Airport, we're going to runway 28. Why do I not put in a heading? Well, I'll just put in 280. I know it's not 280 exactly, but we'll just do that. Runway 28. The next step is initialize. Again, this is just useless information, but I'll enter in something that kind of sounds realistic. Might as well enter in no current fuel. 352.7. And I'll do like 200 or something. And then that's it. So that's all the data entered into the flight management computer. Now for the radio management computer, aside from the ILS frequency, this is completely useless information. But let's do it anyway. So, Vite Airport, ATC frequency 119.175. 119.175. ATIS 131.65. And destination is Skumu 135.6. 135.6 and 135.6. Skumu ATIS is 132.45. 132.425. I'll also throw in the eagle since we're flying over that. 130.1 to 5. 13 decimal. What was it? 15? Yeah, 15. And you go ATIS is 130, just 130. There is some frequencies. I'll leave that blank because we don't even use that. Transponder, I'll just something random. And I believe transponder stuff is in the checklists, so I'll leave it for now. And back to checklists for pre-flight. Right.
these two are complete. Transponder standby. And there we go. Next up, pushback. Well, I don't think we need to do pushback, so we'll just skip that step. Alright, engine start. Engine area, check clear. Yep, looks good to me. Parking brake. Set, already set. ACAS, engine screen. Yep, already here. I'm just going to point out quickly, we have 8 screens on the ECAS. The ECAS on engine screen. AC pressure, check off. Off, because we need all available power to start the engine. Not power, pressurized air. Deck pressure, yep, that's at 6 units. Fuel, I'll turn it all on now. Capacity on. But we're going to start engine 2 first. So, I know the checklist, so I'm just going to not look at this for now. So, for whatever engine you're going to start, I want to make sure we have duct pressure and fuel. And I'm going to turn that to start. And now we're going to, on the engine display, wait for 22% N2. Now we can introduce fuel. Now we're going to wait for the engine to start up. And there's one thing I forgot to do, which I should probably have moved here, but anti-collision light should be on when we're either being pushed back, so moving, or we're doing engine start. It's on now. So the engine is now started. So now we turn on the electrical generators and hydraulic pumps. And now I can start the other engine. Oh, also, it's bleed there. So now starting engine 2. At 20% N2, we can add fuel. That electrical generator is on, and hydraulic pumps on. I believe there. Now I can also add back in our aircraft pressure. I'll just set that for now. Now before taxi, parking brake is set. Engines are running, yep, controls check. I'm going to go to the flight control screen. Now the controls always work, but for reasonable purposes we're just going to check them now. Turn to the right, yep, turn to the left, pitch down, pitch up, spoilers, and now we'll add flaps, setting 1. Flaps are extending, and flaps are down to the desired setting. Controls are checked. Let's put this back to the engine display. Now APU electrical generators and hydraulic pumps and on. So just turn all the APU stuff off, so no pumps, no bleed air, and no generators. Now I can turn the APU switch off. Now the APU is being shut down. Next up, anti-haze systems as needed. Now you'll never need them, you don't actually do anything at all, but we'll just turn them on. Because why not? And transponder to alt off. And again, this does absolutely nothing, it's just there for realism purposes. And parking brake off, so then if you're at, say, not the runway, you would then release the parking brake and then taxi to the runway, but we're already here. So I'll just leave it on. Set flaps, yep, it's set to go. Trim, set for takeoff. 8 to 12 degrees. Now, in virtual reality, which is where I usually fly, you can just move it. or you can use trim. I'm just going to use the trim. In an older version of the plane, I used to have it so you could grab it and drag it on computer, but I found that I kept dragging it accidentally, so I just removed that feature. So now you have to use trim, like the trim input on computer. Let's set that to about there somewhere. And yaw damper on. I'm going to turn that on. Auto throttle arm. And I'll just, at this point here, I'll just press the climb button. So that now imports the data entered into the flight manager computer for the climb phase. So we can arm the auto throttles. And heading. So when we're heading, the default setting is 0. So I'm currently on basically 0, so we're good for now. Landing lights on. And cabin pressurization on and set. So this does again absolutely nothing, but we'll just set it to like 5,000 and we're going to turn it on. And transponder, and add a transponder. So now we're going to do a takeoff. So checking our flat speed range. The minimum speed for setting 1 is 156 knots, so that's what we're going to accelerate to before we can take off. So release parking brake, apply almost full power, and now we go take off. So we have a positive right, so gear up, and flaps out. Now after takeoff, altitude is increasing, gear is up, flaps are now up, and auto trim on. So next up, landing lights off. Tax light is already off. Turn off lights are now off. And autopilot as needed, so just turn it on. And then windshield wipers off, they're already off. Logo lights off above 10,000 feet. I'll probably forget to do that, but I'll leave it on for now. Then seatbelt signs as needed. From my very minimal understanding, I understand that they're usually on below 10,000 feet, and then they're off once there's turbulence. I'll just leave them on for now. And also, somewhere in there I forgot to turn off ground power. Let's just forget that happened. Anyway, after takeoff, where were we? No, we're done. So now this is the cruise phase of the flight. Let's go into cruise now. So the next checklist is for landing. So now we just cruise. And also, it's not mentioned in the checklist, but now we can use other stuff like the auto navigation. So you can see a flight plan here that we're currently not even using. Apparently we just set to heading 0. But if I enable flight plan mode, then now we'll fly the flight plan. We'll just switch it to the next waypoint since we already passed Rikon. And now I'll just let the aircraft do its thing for the next, like, 20 minutes or so. I think now is a good time to start our descent. Now, if you're just doing a normal descent, you just adjust the altitude, which I can also do. But since I'm going to do vertical navigation, I'm going to use the approach button. So once just to enter the details, then you have to press it twice. So now we're on VNav, as indicated by this icon here. Now what's happening is the plane is calculating the angle of descent, given the current altitude, to reach this waypoint at this height here, 2,500 feet. Then now we just wait for a while, and yes, I did forget to turn off the local light and seatbelt sign. That's fine, we'll just leave it on. There is another thing we can do. Landing prep, so we need to enter in the destination ILS frequencies. I'm just going to do one, which is the runway we're going to land at. And the airport data document we can see. For Skuma, other page. For Skuma Airport, runway, what are we doing? 10. I think it's 10. No, 28. Yeah, runway 28. The runway 28, 237.7. So navigation, 237.7. And we can see here, DMA is 77 point. Well, to 77 now. It's decreasing. Now we're going to wait until we're pretty close to the waypoint. So now we're just 1 minute out from the waypoint. I'm just going to check out the last of the landing prep. So approach briefing. I guess that really just means have an idea of what you're going to do on the approach. So I guess done, maybe? Seatbelt signs. Well, we just left them on, same with logo lights. Before landing, flaps as needed. Gear is down below 2,500, so pretty soon. Landing lights, I'll just chuck it on now. ILS captured, as we can see by the 2 diamonds here. I guess it's kind of captured. I'm just going to enter into localizer mode now, since I just know. We zoom in, we're going to, yep, pretty much right on right there. Perfect approach, and I'll enter glide slope mode 2, since this diamond is in the middle. So right now the aircraft is automatically flying the approach itself. So gear down now. And I'm also going to start slowing down too. I'm going to 150 now. I'm going to do a bit of spoilers. You can see the airport in the distance there. And I'll add some flaps. I'll go to flaps 2 already. You can see by this green bar and the yellow bar where our minimum and safe speeds are. Actually, I'll just keep going down all the way to flaps 4. I'm also going to arm the spoilers here. Now if you don't arm the spoilers and you are doing an auto land, from what I found, it'll actually bounce off the runway, so you need to have either flaps armed or be ready to, spoilers armed, or be ready to deploy them manually. Now we're at our target speed, we can remove spoilers, final checks, yep, everything is complete. Next step is after landing. So, we're good to just do the approach now.
$1,000. 500. 400. Approaching minimums. 300. Minimums. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20.
Glide
10.
slope.
5.
As we touch down, I'm gonna do some brakes and reverse thrust. And now that we have slowed down, I'm just going to wait till we exit the runway. I'm just going to set the parking brake and do the after landing checklist. So flaps up, spoilers disarming up, pressurization off, oil damper off, and APU start. The next step is to enable the generators and pumps. And bleed air. Landing lights off. Auto throttles off. Auto trim off. Control bits as needed, so off pretty much. Anti-ice off. And taxi light on. Anti-ice off. Taxi light on. And now we're going to taxi to the gate. We come to a stop, set parking brake, and then engine stuff off, so engine hydraulics, engine generators, and engine bleed air, bleed air, fuel switches off. Anti-collision lights and taxi light off. Ground power and hydraulics on. No, before that, fasten seatbelt signs off. And then CVR and CDR via base. And then it says reset the flight management system if needed. Now just to demonstrate how you do this, I'll do the RMC. We go into aircraft information, go into reset system, RMC, and then we go confirm, and as you can see, everything gets cleared. Then the same would happen for the flight management computer, but I'll just leave that for now. And then shutdown. Now, I'm not going to do this just for a moment. Now, I should have done this at the start of the video, but now I'll just show a clip of me showing all of the interactivity throughout the interior, since there is first person. Here it is. There's a lot of stuff just around the plane that you could interact with, like overhead bins. So I'll just show you that now. Starting in the cockpit, we have the adjustable armrests on the pilot seats. They can all be moved individually. We also have the heads-up displays for the captain and first officer. The display itself only appears when the module is rotated down. When you release it at any point in the rotation, it will snap to either be up or down. The first officer's heads-up display has the same behavior, and all the other controls can be adjusted as well, although it is a little bit finicky to use the reverse thrust levers. It is doable, but a little bit more difficult. All the other levers can be moved. The flaps lever snaps to each setting. And then looking towards the back of the cockpit, we have the cockpit lights. And we have the cockpit door. Now for all the doors on the aircraft, the buttons are located at either side of the door. For this one, it is this little rectangle that runs the full height of the wall. You can sort of see the width here by the outline. And then we can open the door. That is just decorative. That's actually not something you can open. It's attached to the avionics bay, but there is no button there. Then we have the two ultimate class doors. The buttons for those are located on the right side of the door, or left side, but the handle side of the door, and they run the full height. The width, I think you can sort of tell here, it's about this wide. Then you can click that and the door will open. There's nothing in here that can be interacted with. Same for the other one. And then coming towards the first galley, we have a few things. Let's look at the pilot rest area. The button for this door is located in the wall, and the width of that one is about the full width of the wall, I think. It's, as always, full height. We can open that. And then going underneath the floor, we have the pilot rest area, which have the switch for the lights. And then we also have the avionics bay. The button for this door is about this wide. We can go in here. We also have the avionics bay light switch. Going back up to the main floor, we have the doors for the aircraft. Now all of the doors have the same operation. We just have a button on the handle, like so. All of the bathrooms are similar in operation. The button for the door is, I think it's always on the hinge side. I have no clue why the camera is jumping around like that. Probably just because of my tracking. I'll just reset my position. Hopefully that works. Anyway, as I was saying, the button is located on the hinge side of the door. Nothing here can be interacted with. This is all just decorative. And then coming towards the front galley, we have the doors and handles. To open that, we just have this button. And the position is about here. Then that opens the doors and latches. In here, we have the galley cart. Now, in previous versions, you would actually use this galley cart and the joystick to move yourself around the aircraft, but in the new version, I just have a simple first-person camera, which you use by either using pitch, roll, and yaw on PC, or you just use your joystick in virtual reality. It's a lot easier to move around. But I just left this in so you can move this around, I guess. And the button, there's a button in this galley cart. It's about the full size of the front, and that resets the position of both the first-person camera and the galley cart. And that is it for the front area. Next we have the main cabin and the overhead bins. Now for each overhead bin, they can all be opened. The button for each overhead bin is in the same position, like for each type of bin. So for these middle bins, the button is located about here. You can maybe see the outline. It runs the full length of the bin, and it is about this wide between the air conditioning and lights. and this black line. And pressing that opens the overhead bin. Similar for the outer bins, the button is about here between the nozzle and bin. And then moving down to the next galley, nothing in this galley moves, it's just that front galley. But we have all of the bathrooms. And maybe I shouldn't stare into the corner. I'm going to stare into my base station. Anyway, as I was trying to say, all the doors can be opened with a button. You can kind of see the button outline here. And then same for this one. The bathrooms themselves have a slightly different size and shape. They have all the same features. You've got a toilet, flush button, sink, toilet paper, bin, and mirror. Or mirror. Anyway, but the size is a bit different for each one. And then coming into the next two cabins, this is all the same overhead bin types. Nothing in here, all aside from the doors, nothing in here is interactive. And then coming to the back of the cabin, we have the final 4 bathrooms. The button for each of them is in the same logical position, same features, same on the other side. And then we have the rear galley. Nothing in here is interactive though. We also have the 2 final bathrooms. Similar method in opening them. And then looking outside the aircraft, we have the 2 cargo doors. Now for those, it's not as simple as just clicking a button, like there's no button here. Instead, you go to this panel. Now this whole surface is a button, so you click that, that opens. And then you have some cargo door controls. You also have some instructions below that. So you can unlock the door, and you need hydraulics to do this. But you unlock the door, and then you hold to open it, so it's continuous. So if I stop it, it'll just stop moving. You can kind of see that. But once the door is fully open, the green light will illuminate. And we can have a look inside. Nothing in here moves, just all for decoration. You can only lock it when it's fully closed. So let's do that. Hold to close the door. And we can lock it and close the panel. There's also the front cargo door. Operating that is just like the rear one. Panel is just behind the door. Unlock it, open and close it. And that is it for all the interactive features of the cabin.
And now I can do shutdown. So parking brake is set, which it is. We'll just reset the flight management computer now. Reset system and confirm. So now we have a look. Everything is gone. And our flight plan is also gone. Now, so I just noticed, I'll just show you a screenshot from the flight, but there should be text here showing the latitude and longitude of the target waypoint. That was just not there. I don't know why, but I'll fix that for the actual version. Anyway, seat heaters off, they're off. Cabin module switches. That would be just all of this, all offs. Oh, everything actually. Air conditioning next, all off. So really just turning everything off. AC pressure off, bleed air off. Hydraulics off. Not exactly trying this in perfect order, no, that was the main. But really just turning everything off, so no fuel pumps, no crossfeed, no APU. That stays on for now. APU set to off. Oh yeah, lights. Off, off, off.
I forgot about this too. Off, off, off. Yeah, really just everything. So there go the cockpit lights, electrics master, and batteries. Now everything is switched off. And also, technically, you can also turn this off. And that is the aircraft fully shut down. And also, I'll just show you something else now. So let's say you want to skip the 1 hour or however long it was of me showing you how to fly this thing. You just want to get in the air, get flying. Here's how you do that. Step 1. Go to the overhead panel view. Turn all of this on. Batteries. Lights. Fuel pumps. Start the APU. We're going to preemptively turn these on. Turn everything here on. Start the engine. Fuel pumps on because the engine will just start anyway. Every single thing here turns on. As soon as the engine has started, which it has now, normal, start. The engine will keep starting. The second engine can also be started. Everything here on, except for pressure, because we need pressure to start the engines. Engine on, everything on. I'm just going to turn on some lights because we still have some time. Back to the cockpit view. Looking brake off. Flaps are not required, but you can if you want. And now, everything is on. It took us like 3 minutes. If you want to just fly, you can skip all the autopilot stuff and all the procedures. Just everything here on. Start the engines, and then maybe not try and take off right now. But we can fly at like 120 knots, and then give up. Maybe some flaps up. There you go, that is the, I guess, express way to start the aircraft. So with that, I have shown you, I guess, most of the things you'll need to know about flying the aircraft. All the little details are in the technical manual. It is quite a read, but it does show you everything. And then I guess everything else is really straightforward, so let's just say the manual gives you like 2 pages of text. A lot of stuff is just intuitive, so you can just understand it. So you click, say, this is to view pages. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video, if there is one. Bye!